Welcome to our panel, and I will start with a brief setting of the scene. Energy security has always been a crucial element of geopolitics, and geopolitics has always had a large impact on energy security. With greater technical sophistication, not just the energy supply routes, but also domestic energy infrastructure are more at risk. Energy has become smarter, more distributed, more interconnected, and more vulnerable. The number of participating generators and consumers has grown exponentially, and with it also the so-called attack surface. The number of cyberattacks and ransomware cases on electricity utilities in the US, India and Ukraine, and many other countries increased. Gas pipelines have for a long time been the target of sabotage. But also electricity interconnection cables, for example in the Baltic Sea, crucial for integrating renewable energy, is now being targeted. There are concerns in the US about so-called kill switches in Chinese solar power inverters, which could take entire solar plants offline. The power outages at the Cannes Film Festival last week seem to have been an act of sabotage. And the fire of a substation near Heathrow Airport in March showed how energy infrastructure failure can result in massive impacts on global transportation. The move towards green technology has enabled many countries to reduce their dependency on fossil fuel imports. Decentralization has also, for example, in the case of Ukraine, improved the physical security of energy infrastructure. But for clean energy to be scaled, grids, producers and consumers have to be more digitally interlinked. Supply chains of critical minerals needed for clean energy are often located in geopolitically challenging situations. 3 weeks ago, a massive blackout has left 60 million people in Spain and Portugal without power. The technical cause is not yet known, but it shows how much conventional and renewable energy grids in neighboring countries need to coordinate and communicate in the new energy world to secure security of supply. Through the energy transition, we are building a new energy system with a new operating design. This also provides the opportunity to build in a more resilient system, to build a green shield, if you will. Our esteemed panelists will discuss these challenges, solutions, and options for collaboration. With us, we have Rastislav Chovanec, Deputy Minister of Foreign and European Affairs from Slovakia. We have His Excellency Dr. Abdallah Belhaif Al-Nuaimi, Chairman of the Sharjah Consultative Council and former Ministry of the Environment of the UAE. We have Haik Yezayan, the CEO of Team Telecom in Armenia. We have Ornela Ciuci, Head of the Research Center of the Western Balkan University in Albania, and Liliana Śmiech, Director General for International Affairs of the Ludovika University of Public Service in Hungary. And I'm Fabian Wiegand, Senior Director and Energy Transition Practice Lead at the engineering consultancy Tetra Tech. We will start the discussion, then in the end, hopefully give you also in the audience room for questions. And let me begin by giving His Excellency Al-Nuaimi room for quick intervention on the long-term clean energy development. His Excellency, what is your long-term view on security and resilience from the climate change angle?
Thank you very much. I was actually amazed this morning by the address of the Prime Minister and whomever came after him. And the navigating the unknowns came to my mind as an issue that we all should be talking about. I came to this place, to this room, this morning with a full capacity of people. Now, one can see very little. That shows how much awareness we have about the unknown and how much awareness we have about navigating the unknowns. If we are to navigate the unknowns, what is it that we really need to navigate? Do we really want to navigate the climate change, by which we thought 15 or 16 years ago in 2015 that the temperature, the atmospheric temperature, should not actually go below 2 degrees Celsius and preferably 1.5 degree. As of last January of this year, we have seen the second warmest January in the history, where the temperature has actually risen for 1.75 degrees Celsius. And that is above what we thought that could be our target in Paris Agreement. Are we navigating the unknowns of climate justice when we see 33 million people in Pakistan having no homes and no hopes after the government spending 30 billion to interfere into the climate change? Are we really navigating the unknowns when we get into producing a new energy or a new renewables that maybe some of it is creating problems, when we know that a gas like hydrogen that does not exist on our atmosphere, and we are spending trillions in producing a gas that can participate into infiltrating the ozone. Today, as we speak, we have actually managed to get the nitrous oxide into 10 times as it used to be a decade ago. So are we navigating the unknown with tools that goes beyond our institutions and research institutions and universities? I am surprised to come and see navigating the unknowns with no knowledge of what is it that we really want to navigate. Today we have the biggest disasters that the whole globe should put its efforts together to make and provide solutions. Unfortunately, we are not doing that. We do not have globally a platform that could tell us what is it that we should navigate to intervene and reduce the emissions into our atmosphere. I have actually visited so many schools all over the world, and I have seen our kids have no awareness of what is going to be happening in the 2050. Unfortunately, I am sorry to say that navigating the unknowns with no tools would actually create more disasters and probably more vulnerable climatic conditions, and we would probably be looking into solutions that are not relevant to our future disasters. Even when we talk about new minerals are also navigating the unknowns, that new minerals are again just oil and gas. They will exhaust one day, and then we will end up having no solution. So I think we have to be very careful when we look into navigating the unknowns and what is it that we really need to talk about. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, His Excellency. Now let's look a bit more at the security policy angle. And the first question to the reigning panelists is how you perceive the risk for critical infrastructure these days, particularly in your own country or region, and how this risk is evolving through trends such as green technologies, digitalization, and hybrid conflict. And I would like to start with Mr. Chovanec.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, obviously the risks are high and they are growing. Right now, we are so dependent on energy that maybe only drinking water is the second issue, similarly important to us on an everyday, every second basis. And it makes it quite easy to target the energy either sector or energy appliances. We are under threat on numerous levels. One of them is obviously the real bombing or destroying these energy facilities, but also there are some hybrid ways how to hurt us, especially in the cybersecurity area, but also on the other ways, other instruments. For example, I will use the example of Slovakia. We are heavily dependent on supply of this energy. Maybe not or we are able to produce a lot of energy by ourselves, but we are dependent on a nuclear fuel, which is right now for us something that we cannot substitute. We are heavily dependent on importing, for example, gas and oil, and we are getting into the situation where we are losing potential suppliers because, of course, European Union, due to the situation in Ukraine, is trying to cut off itself from the Russian supplies. But right now, and even though we want to have different suppliers, it's quite difficult for us to bring another or the gas from other countries in a sufficient amount to Slovakia. We have some problems with the interconnection pipelines. We have the problems, even though if we find a new pipeline, the costs for transportation are much higher. So at the end of the day, our companies and our economy is not competitive because we have much higher energy prices than, for example, our US and I'm not even speaking about Chinese competitors. So there are many threats or many risks that we should cover. Of course, European Union is trying to introduce all possible measures how to work with climate change. The question is if these measures are working and if they are not hurting us in other sectors. We think that we should have the calculation about the impact, because on one hand we are really focusing on the green technologies, but on the other hand we are doing it at the expense of our industry. And even though we would say that, okay, we are willing to take this risk or this trade-off, in the long term, it's showing us that it's not working, as His Excellency mentioned, because if it will be only few countries trying to change their behavior or the way how they are producing, then it's not enough, because the situation with the climate change is not good. So right now, I believe that we should focusing on maybe less instruments, but the ones that would be heavily adopted by all our countries, because there has to be something done. I agree that the situation is critical and it's only getting worse.
Thank you so much. Ornella Ciucci, what is your perspective from working particularly on Western Balkan integration and integration to the EU?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And it's my fourth time in Armenia, in Yerevan. And I want to thank the WRF for giving us this opportunity to explore this amazing country, and also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to give us the opportunity to see and to enjoy the heritage of this country, and to see how much important this country is about the civilization of all of Europe. And thank you for this. So we are talking here about how we can build energy systems that don't just power our homes, but also protect our sovereignty. So in the 20th century, we thought about oil, and now in the 21st, we'd better learn how to protect our lives. Across the globe, the energy systems are now part of the battlefield, but not through bombs, but through hybrid threats, cyber attacks, infrastructure sabotage, supply chain disruptions. And this part, I am from Albania, and probably you have heard about the Iran attack in our country for a long month, and they destroyed everything, every digitalization that we have done under our government processes. So, lastly, the NATO review and the European Center of Excellence for Countering Hybrid Threats are clear. Our grids, pipelines, digital control systems are now the targets of the hybrid conflict. And also, by the other hand, the University of Stanford warns that while decarbonization improves geopolitical autonomy, it increases the vulnerability to digital attack vectors. Yes, we are every smart matter, every connecting wine turbine, and also we can find other ways how to make cheap solar panels, but it's a big risk about that requires design and also legislation. So the green energy create new dependencies now. It's not our dependencies, they are not about oil, they are on critical minerals like lithium and other first materials. And the whole globe is going from from one form of geopolitical exposure to another form, from the fuels to mineral geopolitics. So yes, we need to diversify our clean energy portfolio, hydropower, solar, wind, bioenergy, geothermal. But in the meantime, and GCF and GEF also, the multilateral, these institutions, funds, global funds, through the World Bank, EBRD, UNDP, and other the biggest organism, they have another overview on the systems. They are not just investing on the solar panels, but even they are already shifted their frameworks, not only just financing megawatts, but they are financing the resilience and the sustainability of all this process. And I will want to share with you the case of the Western Balkans here, EU, which it's our target. We are part of Euro geographically, but we are not part of Euro geopolitically. So EU promised 9 million euros for our green transition. And now, 2 or 3 years later, we are now seeming as European extraterrestrials here, because no one is talking anymore about the green transition or the green economy or nothing else. Even Europe, it's not talking even for peace. It's only about the defense economy. So what about this green transition? And what about our sovereignty, our energy sovereignty? So it's like, and they promised us this 9 billions, but in the meantime, and we were obliged to transpose our legislation from the European legislation into Albanian shoes or Western Balkan shoes, and it's like designing a Ferrari energy vision into our LADA project pipelines. And within these objectives that we had, we transposed the German legislation for Albania reality, and now we have zero funds for the defense as country. For the first time, they are obliging us to put this 2% for the defense, and this 2% they are coming from our investments into the energy pipelines. So yes, in Albania, for example, we are a unique case in Europe. We are producing almost 90% of our energy is produced from hydropowers, from waters. We are blessed with waters, but in the meantime, we are also blessed from the climate change impacts. Big floods, big droughts. So these droughts, it's disturbing our supply, and so we need more. But we gap legislation, we gap standards, we gap investments, we gap diversity, diversifying our and almost we gap skilled industrial energy professionals. So in all this big gap between the European legislation, European reality, and Western Balkan reality, what's our point, and what's our defense, and what's our obligations about the defense and the energy sector?
Thank you. May I ask Mr. Yesayan to give a perspective from the private sector in your experience?
Actually, from the private sector, I guess two specters. First of all, as much you as a company is more sustainable on energy part, it's more predictable for you to have long run projection on production, also or service giving. You know, the last 5 years, the digitalization is growing on ITC, and it's giving us that we are, as a company, using of total facility 1% of total energy capacity of the country. How much we will be more sustainable on a greener energy, it will help country to help more be sustainable all in all. And last year we did a lot of moves. Until the end of the year, 40% of our energy usage will be green. It's almost solar, hydro. And as we see also the storage systems are very important for the country for the security reason, to have diversified the energy. And also, as you mentioned, cyber attacks also, they are very important for countries, as Armenia is small. But all in all, I will be focused on different countries to be more different security visions, because as much you are smaller, your security strategy will be totally different as US or Europe countries, because they are more connected to each other. And to apply same security policies to the small countries, I think it's not very reasonable. And as a small country, we have very big chance to have also very independent on energy part, and also on the security of the networks that connecting also energy and different type of digitalization in the country.
Thank you so much. And Mrs. Schmier, may I ask you for your perspective also from the international relations side?
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It's my first time in Armenia, but so far so good. And just actually commenting on my colleague's message regarding the empty promises by the European Union. Well, I'm not sure if actually European Union is the one that I would like to follow with regards to the energy policy, because what we did, we delivered regulation without the actual resilience. So I'm not sure if this green dependence policy is the one that I would recommend to our partners from outside the European Union. But just going directly to your question, well, green technologies and digitalization, yes, they bring the progress, but at the same time, they bring much more vulnerabilities that we can experience. And from the Central Europe perspective, what we've learned is that energy security is not just a technical issue. It is about our sovereignty. And especially from the Polish perspective, I'm I'm Polish. We learned it quite quickly. We invested a lot in the LNG infrastructure. Now we're investing a lot in the nuclear perspectives. But at the same time, if you look, for example, at the Hungarian model that promotes affordability and it promotes different partnerships, that's another very good model that we could actually develop in the future. If we really want a true security in the European Union, we need more than just the targets. Well, targets are important, but only if they are not driven by empty climate slogans, but they actually promote the strategic objectives that we need in the whole European Union. At this current moment, what we're doing, we're only killing our own internal sectors. And if we won't stop it, we will be in the much bigger troubles in the near future.
Mr. Yazayan, we mentioned here already now a bit the topic of regulation, of targets. I mean, for you, I imagine it, on the one hand, you want frameworks for cybersecurity, but you also want to be fast and innovative. How can we design cybersecurity regulation that doesn't harm innovation?
To be a joke, to not regulate that much that we need. But reality is that regulation by our governance is going very slowly. But cyber attack and cybersecurity changes is much more faster. And we have to be more attractive there and more on the ground to change faster, or to just build a ecosystem where can work also the companies, private companies with the government, to react and to be faster as in a war. Because in reality it's war, and it can become within a couple of seconds. And every, system can be attacked and can be hacked finally. It's only the timing issue. They will take 10 minutes or it will take like day or something. I think this is main point for all of the world to be change the mindset of the regulation of the security reason. And also I believe, as I mentioned, every country has his own network architect, which is totally different. Depends on the country size, depends on the how many borders it's connected. Like if we can talk about Armenia, that we have four countries across us, but we have main connectivity from one direction, like 90%. We can also through Georgia. It means it's easily to disconnect the country from outside gateway to stop attack if it's coming outside. The inside attacks is totally different, and we have to be regulate inside and outside attacks differently. And as I mentioned, we have to work with the private and government together to have joined some institution to work on the legislation, and to not put more legal parts there than reactions.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chovanec, when you look more at the European integration process, we had a chat just before the start of this panel on gas infrastructure and transmission corridors. Where do you see the biggest need in Europe to create a more integrated, reliable trading framework that would enable you to be energy secure?
Europe is right now, or EU is right now, under a lot of pressure because of the war in Ukraine. Of course, European Union wants to put a lot of pressure also on Russia with cutting off the member states from Russian energy supply, which I can understand. But again, it comes at the expense of competitiveness, or it's not even taking into consideration the real infrastructure that there is. I will again use the the example of Slovakia, that we have a lot of interconnections between Slovakia and Austria and Czech Republic and Hungary. But if you take into consideration the whole amount of gas that we are able to import, not using the Ukrainian interconnector or Russian gas that would come from the South Stream, that's not sufficient for our demand. We are not able to get new slots in some docks or harbors, or how you want to call it, that we would be able to bring LNG to Slovakia. So I really believe we need to diversify our energy sources, but it cannot be a knee-jerk reaction. It cannot happen that, okay, today I will come up with regulation or with an idea and you have to implement it within 6 months, because that's not going to happen in energy sector. So I really believe we would be able to find a solution first, to do a very good feasibility study, calculate the costs, calculate how it will impact our companies and our economy, and based on that we can do the changes. Of course, it's not we don't have enough time, or it's not going to happen that easily. But I would really like to see the more thought out activities. You mentioned gas. I will say I will use the example of this nuclear fuel, that Slovakia has 70% of its nuclear from its energy supply from nuclear power plants, and we try to diversify. We even worked with American company that would offer us the nuclear fuel. It's not working yet. If it would be working, it would need again 3 years for certification. So the idea is that we need to have different suppliers. It just cannot happen in a very short period of time. And that's what I really believe also the people in Brussels will realize.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Smiach, when we're looking at the security, so far we discussed a lot about the digital security. If we're looking more at the physical security of interconnections, particularly now active sabotage in the Baltic Sea, what do you think are suitable frameworks to protect such interconnections between countries?
Well, my answer would be quite short. Just don't rely on the external infrastructure and build your own. That would be the easiest solution. Depending on whatever supplier it is, it's dangerous. If we rely on one supplier, no matter whether it is China, whether it is maybe a bit controversial, US, if we rely on one supplier, it will cause some troubles in the future. So what we should do in the European Union, and I believe it should be rather overall goal, overall aim for all of us, for all of the countries in the EU, but also our partners, Western Balkans, Central Asia, Caucasus, East Asia. We should build our own European infrastructure. We should develop our own technologies. We should actually protect our own national markets. And then if we do not have certain components, reach out to external actors. And that would be the solution. I don't see any other solution at this moment.
But just a follow-up question on that. Are you suggesting that within Europe there should be less integration and less flow and trade of energy?
No, within the EU there should be more, of course. The more connections, the better.
So how would
if I have, as a Poland, let's say, hypothetically, if I can already assure the energy to my citizens, that would be affordable and it would be reliable, then I should help my neighbors. And that's actually what is happening because of the interconnectors that we are building with our neighbors. And if we cannot do it within the format of the European Union, there is regional cooperation. Why not to work within, for example, 3 Cities initiative? It is actually about building infrastructure. within the part of Europe that had a bit different historical experiences. For example, the Western Europe, most of the connections in the past were being built from west to east, but nothing was built from north to south, and that's what we should support within our region. So yes, absolutely, more connections, more infrastructure to be more reliable partners within the EU, and then to be exactly on the same level if we're making business with our external partners. We are equal. We cannot go to the negotiation table from the worst position. So yes, we should invest in our European market.
Thank you. Mrs. Ciucci, you are on the board of the Green Climate Fund. You're heavily involved in the Global Environmental Facility. If we're now looking at the Global South and developing countries where you help to shape the framework, how can we support critical infrastructure protection in developing countries? And what is the role that finance institutions, particularly development banks, can play to set the right standards?
Oh, thank you. So let me share something personal. I have been part of the government of Albania for 7 years almost, coming from academia, and I am again in academia now. And so what I have seen within the government, and not only for our government, if you don't want to do a job, you have to create an interministerial group for doing this job. And you will have, for sure, not work done. So what countries need? Yes, we need to work, as you said, and you don't need probably as private sector the governments, but the governments, they need legislations, and the governments within their standards in the energy law, they must prepare mandatory cybersecurity and AI readiness standards immediately. We are, with our laws now, we are just regulating our voltage levels, but nobody is caring about regulating our digital protections, which is a must. Secondly, cross-border collaboration. It's a must. In Albania, we are only 3 million people. But in Balkans, we are 70 million. So if we will be all together working on this, we will work better, for sure. Let's think this as a weather forecast for hybrid risk. It will be good. Secondly, and thirdly, so it's about technical and industrial human capital. And that I am not talking about codification. I am talking about green workers. In my country, we don't have green workers, or we have less and less green workers. I don't know if you're in your countries, but as I am seeing in European countries, we don't have just smart workers. We need to be skilled, certified, and resilient also. The fourth, it's the collaboration between, and it's very important, for the triple helix collaboration. And I'm talking here about governments, not only central, but even local governments. I'm talking about universities, academians, and private sector. Without this collaboration, nothing can be done. And the last one, it's the finance, and the most important, I think, it's the finance. And I'm sharing here my experience from the Green Climate Fund, which is the biggest fund, multilateral funds for small countries like mine, but even for small islands, but even for developing countries. So 2 big problems. The first one, bureaucracy. Even EU has bureaucracies, but Green Climate Funds, big bureaucracies. The last project that we had from the Green Climate Funds, we needed 7 years for the approval of one project. In 7 years, we have to change our project because it's not relevant anymore. The second one is delivery partners, and I'm talking about local expertise. We can't buy always German, US expertise for our realities. We need our own delivery partners, our own local partners to be accredited for this management, for this the management of these funds. And almost we need our own banks, secondary level banks. Without this and only EBRD, we can't do nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. His Excellency Al-Nuaimi, may I ask you to wrap this panel up, and afterwards we have some questions from the audience, hopefully, on solutions. You mentioned that there is a massive problem these days, that the conversation has shifted, that climate change is there's not enough focus on it anymore. You also mentioned that you feel that some technologies which are suggested to tackle climate change would bring with them follow-up problems. What are then the solutions you're looking at?
It's great. Thank you very much. I think what I have heard from panelists is really very promising. But we still think in directions. We think in global north to support global south, and we still have that issue pending within each globe. So I think solutions could actually be, the way I think about it, solutions could actually be looking into three different thoughts. One is establishing a global platform that shows all the data. Today, whatever has been done in Hungary is unknown probably to their neighbor. The emission of this country is unknown to their neighbor. So if we have a platform that shows all the activities, everything that we do on Earth, and what is it that cost the environment? What is the cost of that emission to our Earth? That is a good solution where everybody knows who does what and how we fight it. The second is getting back. I think you've discussed something nice. I think we really need to get the whole issue of climate change and energy solutions and the future renewable solutions back into research institutions and universities. We have taken it off the places where solutions are built on fundamentals. Today, solutions are not built on fundamentals. Basically, they are built either in innovations or in decision making. The third is having a localhood where institutions that combined all the possible solutions, innovations that we can do. And I'm very pleased to see this in my country. United Arab Emirates is having Masdar in one end that does all the green projects support, whether in town, in the country, or outside the country, and also having arena on the next door. So that is something that could be thought of as a future solution, particularly when we think that this specific country has almost all the universities of the world that are operating, researching, and actually cooperating and working together. So the solution could actually be within this format, summarizing global platform, looking into institutions to do some research, and having a hub that could actually be fair to everybody.
Thank you so much. There is still room for 2 questions from the audience. I would ask you to only state your name and institution, and please don't make a statement, just a question.
Wahid Kamalian from Amali Legacy. My question is to His Excellency. The UAE is indeed in the forefront of innovation. We are seeing that already with N5 backed by the government of Dubai. We're seeing that through accelerators, through Masdar, through IRENA, Mohammed bin Rashid Innovation Fund, and a number of other initiatives. What do you believe is the role of technology, especially from a UAE perspective, to support the green development transition? Thank you.
Thank you. I take one more question, and please be very brief with the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Alcuri from Italy. My question is mainly for the European present here, mainly EU. We know that the green transition and green energy is essential. It's evident now that it's essential for economic diversification and strategic autonomy. But as you mentioned in this panel, and it's very interesting to hear, this creates new dependencies on critical raw materials. Now, my question is, we are seeing the big powers like Russia, China, the US, and other regional powers already having a pragmatic posture in this and investing in geopolitical projects of extraction and mining. Is Europe ready to become pragmatic on a geopolitical level and step up besides its critical raw material act that looks more in a circular economy perspective, or it's not ready to do so? Thank you.
Thank you. Let me give the answer first to His Excellency.
I think, thank you very much for these questions, because I believe that we do have an existing technologies, but unfortunately, we don't use them globally. Today, we are using artificial intelligence into anything but solutions for future renewables or so forth. We are not clubbing artificial intelligence with quantum physics, because quantum computing and physics are a technology that exists, but nobody is really putting it together with artificial intelligence. Also, the third technology is the nanotechnology. We do have spent so much on nanotechnology globally, but we are not clubbing this nanotechnology to come mimicking some new renewable, new minerals, new elements that would actually replace the depleting renewables that we are seeking for, whether it is lithium or anything else for the solar panel, or even rare mineral materials that is in China.
Thank you. Mr. Chovanec, can I ask you to answer on the question on critical raw material supply chains and the balance between European philosophy and pragmatism?
Yeah, this is a very difficult question. I'm afraid EU will not be very pragmatic because EU has its ideological, how we call it? Well, EU is trying to be the front runner on some different on some of these topics. I think the bottom line, we are having troubles with the definitions. What is actually green technology? Are we talking about non-carbon technology? Are we talking about technology that is absolutely extracting from the oil and gas, or are we speaking about, for example, electromobility? Is it green technology? Yes, it is. But if you take into consideration the whole life cycle of the batteries, I'm not really sure that it's helping our climate eventually. So, taking into consideration all these aspects, I believe that EU will not be very pragmatic, especially considering working with the countries where these materials are mined or should be mined. But also, I see one more problem. Even if it would be possible to find the supply of these raw materials in EU, just to get the process that would allow you to have the mining and to get the permits to extract this from the earth, it would take many years. What I'm afraid of, this train already left. We are having troubles that most of the known supply is already, I would say, booked by some other countries, by some other companies that are non-EU countries. And that's something that we really have to think about, that how much are we willing to invest into our well-being and how much we are investing into our ideological approach.
May I? Sorry, may I? Because I'm not Europe and I'm not in politics anymore, I can be politically practical and not politically or diplomatically correct. So Europe is saying nothing about this. Have you heard a single minister of energy saying something about the European dependence on the Russian gas? Nothing, zero. We haven't heard a zero word about this. But Europe is forgetting that energy, it's not about light, it's about defense. And when we are talking about green, nothing is just green. It's green and guarded. And if we want to be guarded, we have to work green. Thank you.
And if I may just answer your question, whether Europe is ready. Well, I think Europe as a whole is not ready. Separate nations are ready, and I actually believe that your country could be ready, and I believe there are several other members of the European Union who could be ready. But what we need, I believe we need a new leadership that would have a common vision for the whole organization, because at this moment we do not have it. And if we will float into this direction, it would be like jumping into a pool, but without water. And that's where we are going. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me wrap up this panel, unless Mr. Yazayan, you want to mention something on critical raw materials as well.
Actually, from business perspective is totally different than governments or politicals are thinking. As much, I can say just only thing, we have to be more focused on country level to our businesses to have more attractive and also have not only have a green energy, not only for only saying that we are going green to fix the issue with our climate change. And as a person, if every person wants to leave this country or world better than he came, I think all we can change together. This is the only issue. If any person wants to leave this country better of you as a nation, as a world, then he came, I think we can do that. If some people wants to live good life only in their life period, like 80, 90 or whatever they will live, we will not change anything. This is, I think, the key point of all of the people, nations who lives in this earth.
Thank you so much. Let's make sure we use this year until the next Yerevan Dialogues for some good homework we got now from the panel. Thank you so much, everyone, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the conference.